Well, hi folks, and back again with Templates for Change Sensory Arts and Sciences, where we're exploring the world, part 3, Self Mental Imagery. And here we're going to start exploring the fascinating echo technology by looking at the kind of echoes we will receive from a place. And how about the kind of echoes that we might receive from this wonderful view of Rio and the Sugarloaf Mountain? That's a possibility, isn't it? I'm John, I'm the presenter here, and I'll be continuing on with this series. And remember, we're now looking at self-mental imagery, capturing ideas, thoughts, images, visionary pictures in our minds from places that we go to. And here we're moving on to the echo technology, how ideas can be bounced and echoed between ourselves and a place to better improve our understandings and imagery. So, okay, let's get started. And again, these are photographs that I've taken in various explorations that I've done. Now, when we visit anywhere, Egypt, for example, here, or Hampton Court, as in our last series, when we come to it, we'll be surrounded by the whole presence of the place, which will impress itself upon us in all kinds of ways. It might well, you could say, speak to us, talk to us from itself, from its history, from what's happened there. So to start with, there'll be all kinds of impressions heading our way. And the question is, how do we think about this? Now, how about looking at them as sounds coming towards us, like those that can happen in a landscape, that can either get received and taken in, disappear, you might say, or get echoed back, not be received. So let's look at this a bit further now. So, what's it like? What's the difference when impressions echo off us? Well, first of all, when we kind of get something or we connect to a place or history, we start getting ideas, it draws us in and takes us forward. And at the same time, we feel energized and hungry for more, and things start to flow, and it all seems to be on the go. But when we can't quite get it, you might say, and the impressions are echoing away, echoing back from us, it feels like we're being kind of slowed down and walking through treacle. We can even start to feel a bit thick, a bit dull, and it can all get a bit tiring. So we can note the difference, and we can tell what we're receiving well and what we don't seem to be receiving well. Well, okay, so how do we set about trying to improve our reception? Well, fortunately, there are many clues in this series so far, because the key, isn't it, is to try and get onto the wavelength of any place we're visiting. And of course, as with a radio, the way to do that is to aim to tune into it. Now, with this type of mental reception, we turn the dial of our mind, you might say, by making just the kinds of inquiries set out in the last section. Now, do you remember that about different places, the gardens, the upstairs, the downstairs, the people, different sorts of people, what they're doing, inquiring, looking, thinking, prompting ourselves in all kinds of ways, what we're feeling, what we're being caused to do, all sorts of things like that. Now, what this does is turning our mind and senses onto all kinds of different things to give ourselves all kinds of opportunities to connect. And when we hit the right wavelength, you might say, for ourselves, then ideas will start to flow and we're off and running. And usually, once we get off and running in one area, then that will grow and we'll suddenly find we're tuning in into all kinds of different things at that place. So this is the kind of way, this is the kind of technologies we use to improve our reception and to connect to things rather than echo much of it away. Now there's another very important part of this, because one excellent way of helping us to keep our minds open to new ideas, feelings and possibilities, and to tune into somewhere better, is to realize consciously that as we explore, everything around us that we're looking at has a history. Now, it's very easy, isn't it, to kind of focus on the big aspects of a place, and you might say miss the smaller parts, and it's often more difficult to connect to the big things than it is to the small things. Indeed, let's take one simple, perhaps extraordinary example. If we look at a stone and decide, well, that's just a stone, there's nothing there, then of course we're not going to be able to receive anything from it or through it. But the truth is, isn't it, there is absolutely no stone, even a stone, that doesn't have a history. So one of the other critical things about tuning in is to be as open to many things as possible, and to try and be available to get information and ideas from all aspects. Now, for example, here's a little ravine behind the Kanheri caves in Mumbai in India, and I was sniffing around looking at this to see what life was like, what went on behind these caves. Just in the same way that when I was at Hampton Court, instead of just staying in the main hall, I disappeared down into the passageway where the workers and the staff would have been, and found that was an excellent place to start to make connections. And that leads on to this idea, isn't it? Being receptive to previous lives. Because as we're going to explore, we're certainly walking in the footsteps of many, many other people who've passed that way too, might have trod in the same place that we've trod, stood in the same place that we're standing, and who would have thought, felt, and lived just like we do today. Different time, different style, different culture maybe, but they were just like us. They were humans just like us. They felt and thought and lived in the same way that we do. And they would also have left behind a trace from their lives for us to pick up. And it's often an excellent idea when you are somewhere to stand or to sit and think to yourself, who was here at this place before me? Stood here, sat here, exactly like me, in this very place that I am today. And the impressions of these earlier people will undoubtedly be coming our way as we walk through places. Now here is a place in Marrakesh that was a medieval hospital for storks, believe it or not, because storks were very sacred. Later it was rebuilt and became somewhere else, and here's a picture of it. But there are layers upon layers that we're walking through. And if we turn in our mind and tune in our mind by questions and inquiries, as I've suggested before, we may well be able to pick up on them rather than have them just echo away. So we walk into a place, we look around, and we think, oh, there's not much here for me, and leave, without realizing there must have been amazing things that went on there, and there would be many things for us if we stopped and spent time and inquired and made connection. Well, I hope you found that section interesting, as it suggests ways that we can connect the echoes of a place and translate them in ourselves. And just to leave you with a picture from Hampton Court, Henry VIII's clock, an excellent place for doing this kind of work, as many other places around the world, of course. Well, I'll be continuing this shortly, so I hope to speak to you again, and all the best, and speak soon. Bye now.